Hello, everyone. I am Kristen, and I am here with Sam and Ron, and we are the Custody Queens. And Ron is a part of our Custody Queens team, and there's no shame in that for him, and I
Nope.
love that. So for everyone that is just joining us, Sam and I and Ron are all certified family law specialists. We are attorneys by day and true crime analysts by night. And we are just really grateful for all the support that we've gotten from this true crime community. And we don't want to waste any time since we have Ron here today. We are going to be diving into Dylan Mortenson's interview with respect to having a certified appellate specialist in addition to a certified family law specialist. Ron is dual certified, and we're going to be poking holes in that. What should we be aware of if we're looking down the road with the appellate process? What does a certified appellate process think of this interview? So without further ado, I'm going to let Sam take it over.
Yeah, so this interview for me, and I have a lot of questions for Ron, but this interview for me was really, really hard to listen to, and I frequently was like, I can't even believe that she believes it. The amount of times it's like, I almost want to go back, but I don't want to listen to this thing again because I've spent too much time listening to it. But the amount of times that she actually said something and then said, I don't know, none of this is real. I don't know. I could be 100% wrong. This could be a dream. It was off-putting. I don't believe that she totally even believes that all of it was a dream or memory. What were your thoughts, Ron?
Oh, I agree. This was the testimony of someone who has an agenda. Now, it's not saying it's a nefarious agenda. It could be just, it's like a lot of my clients who like to get up on the stand and think that they are there to prove their story and to advocate for themselves when they're not. They're there to answer my questions. And I do get frustrated a lot of times. That's what this really struck me as. She is advocating a story, even more so than Bethany is.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know what her attorney told her, but it's almost like, if I could guess, it was like, if you don't know 100% absolutely for sure, say you don't know that. Because a lot of times I was noticing, and we can pull up a clip or two, but a lot of times I was noticing that she would say, yeah, very definitively. And then when she kind of got to the next sentence, it was almost like she remembered to say, but I don't know, I could be totally wrong there.
So tell us about Saturday. Let's talk about the 12th, okay. The day of the game. What time did you get up on the 12th?
I don't even know.
What time do you think Maddie left you to go from your function to the club with Kaylee?
So I have a assignment that I turned in right before I left to go to swimming. So pretty much Saturday night, we got home from the White's apartment. I'm gonna guess around 5:30 again. I don't fully remember. Again, we were drinking that day too. I had just had champagne. I had probably around 3 drinks, seltzers. That was 3:10. I thought it was around 2:30.
What were they asking to text her for?
To take us back to Grub Chuck so we could get more food.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Grub Chuck was the best place to go when you were drunk.
So who's in the house at 3:10 a.m.?
I don't know where Zan and Ethan are.
Okay.
I don't know if they came home or not, but I know for sure. I know in the video we can hear her laughing. So it's me, Kaylee, and Maddie. That is who's in that video. Probably was. I don't know for sure. I was really asleep. I woke up out of nowhere. I heard her playing music.
How do you know it was her? I guess I should ask that.
I don't really know for sure why I knew it was her, but I think it's because I heard her voice and she's probably singing. I knew for sure it was her when she walked upstairs and she said someone's here. That's how I knew for sure that it was Kaylee. Normal, wasn't weird or anything, and I was like, okay, and I can go back to bed.
So she shouted out to you, somebody's here?
Not to me. I don't know if she knew I was awake, but so she walked up the stairs with Murphy. I think she got to almost about the top of the stairs just by how many stomps there was. And she said someone was here frantically, but it wasn't a yell because I know for a fact it wasn't yell or shout because not here. And from what I heard, it's between talking and yelling. Wasn't yelling, but it's in between there. I believe I was also very drunk. I don't know how much of this is real. Like, I don't know if my mind was like doing whatever. I don't know any of it. Like, half of the stuff, I don't know if it's a dream or if it's real. I just have no clue. But
I got that too, Sam. I actually think too, I've listened to this thing more. I play these in my car when I'm driving, which again, I think I've said my kids are now asking me about if that murder thing is on, the radio again or on my car. So I don't recommend doing everything that we do here at the Custody Queens. But the more I listen to things, it just retains process. I think she was actually trying to create chaos. I think that so many of her answers were absolute BS. I think she was trying to make herself believe the story that she was telling. And again, I have a lot of questions, and I don't want to put any specific blame to her. I do think she knows a heck of a lot more than is coming out. But I think she talks so much in circles that she is trying to make herself believe it. And she's also trying to simultaneously create chaos and conflict. So you walk away from that interview going, I have no clue what the heck happened that night.
Yeah. And I think Ron brought up a good point. If you haven't watched our show where we go over Bethany's interview, but Ron brought up a great point. Like, we don't know why, right? We're not like pointing a finger. We don't know why, but at the same time, did you already have one story and maybe you weren't representing what happened? And so now you got to stick to it. Like, that's your story and you got to stick to it. So you're just going to keep saying the same thing that didn't happen. Like, I don't know why, but there's too much of this like memory lapse issue. And same thing with Bethany's interview that I feel with Dylan's is I wish there was more questions. There certainly was from the Nevada law enforcement, but I wanted more questions about her memory. Like, do you have a memory issue? Genuinely, is this the first time you've ever not been able to clearly feel like it was real?
And why don't you have a memory issue 4 hours before the event and 4 hours after the event? Why is it only, I think the memory issue might have had a little bit to do with her attorney, possibly saying, we really need to relook at these answers.
But like, it's just so not credible to me. It's like, if a huge part of the testimony, as I understand it, and a huge part of the accusations that are pointing towards BK are associated with seeing this bushy eyebrowed man in the house, but we have her repeating over and over again, that might be totally wrong. That might be absolutely a figment of my imagination. It was all a dream. Like, that's so concerning how she herself doesn't find herself credible. So why should we listen to anything she said and believe that it's true? She doesn't think she's telling the truth. Like, that's what she's saying. I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It sounds like she's someone who's trying to cover herself against potentially being accused of perjury. That she's building in enough doubt so that if either she didn't get the story correct or if she said something that's contradictory, that she can just blame it on maybe it was a dream, or I'm not sure. She really went overboard in minimizing her credibility, honestly.
Okay, now, and I don't know, there's been a couple, again, same issue with Bethany. I don't know that we're going to call the first one these investigations, as they were all gathered in the Moscow PD station in a waiting room together following, the 911 call. And I'm assuming transporting everybody back to the station. But they are all of the witnesses that were being interviewed that day. And we're going to show that clip right here, because I know that we didn't have it initially at the right time with the last interview. But here it is right here. They are all gathered around. You can see that they are going to follow individually up the stairs, going to go to the interview rooms. And I'm assuming that they're only interviewing so many people at a time after they go upstairs. And so they are very likely probably gathered in areas or rooms or chairs waiting for their turn. But I don't know if anyone else caught this, is that she doesn't bring up the bushy eyebrows initially. She doesn't. No. So where did that come from? And I think it's also been alleged that she's had pictures of art with people with very big dramatic eyebrows that were on the walls in her room. I have not verified that myself. I actually just thought that was a pretty interesting point to bring up. But where did that bushy eyebrows come from? Was it law enforcement that brought it up and she's like, oh yeah, there was someone with bushy eyebrows? Or does anyone know how that initially actually came to light?
No, I don't, but I think it's an amazing point. I mean, she's coming up with more details the longer that time goes on. And she's more clear that she knows less the longer the time goes on. So it stands to reason that you're adding things. Maybe you heard them from other people, but I think what you're saying doesn't totally add up.
Ron, how would you start attacking this? If you were gathering evidence in preparation of just kind of, say you're doing a consulting retainer and you're trying to figure out if there's enough there to even consider doing one of the appellate options moving forward, and you're watching this investigation, like what are your highlights? What are your notes? What are your like, oh my gosh moments?
Well, I think you look at first stuff that's contradictory. You want to show on appeal that what she testified to is inherently improbable. And so the more, I think,
how do you show that? Sorry. And what does that mean for everyone watching? Because I don't know that even I completely, I know what the two words mean separately, but walk us through that.
Well, I think you're basically looking at, would a reasonable juror look at her testimony and have reasonable doubt about whether, about the facts that she's testifying to, assuming that these are things that she's the only one testifying to, meaning if her testimony is one of the pillars on which the verdict stands, meaning that there's nothing else supporting it, that they're relying only on her, is what she said inherently improbable, such that a reasonable jury looking at it would say, no, I've got some doubt. I've got a reasonable doubt that she's telling the truth and that this happened this way. One thing that really stuck out to me about her testimony was what she saw about the masked man and the vacuum he was allegedly holding, which she couldn't tell. Was he holding it up? Was he holding it down? This is a visual image that she's describing, and a visual image, you're not doing this in that, up here, up there. It's like a picture. And so either he was holding the vacuum thing down here or was holding it up or whatever when she saw him. It appeared to be only a brief instant. So it's not something where he's moving around, and she certainly didn't describe him moving around.
She couldn't describe whether or not the lights were on.
Exactly. Oh, exactly. I mean,
we saw a vacuum.
You would know. And so what you want to do, if you're trying to attack it from that angle, which again, usually on appeal, the fact finder gets a lot of deference, but you've really got to show that what was testified to was either impossible or inherently improbable. And the more contradictions you can show, the more likely you're going to get. At the very least, you can show that the evidence was flimsy enough that your attorney maybe shouldn't have advised you to take a plea deal.
Okay, I have two questions there. With respect to the fact finder, you're referring to the judge, correct?
The judge or the jury, depending on who would have made the factual determination. Usually it's the jury. We, of course, didn't have a jury here. And so
if you filed an appeal or you did something with the appellate process, who would be the fact finder making kind of the analysis that you're referring to right now?
Well, any findings here would have been made by the judge, and you're looking at rulings that the judge may have made. I think if you're talking about perhaps ineffective assistance of counsel in advising him to take that plea deal, you're looking at what would a jury have found, and could a jury have based a verdict on this? And so potentially that might be the angle that you're looking at. If from Brian's perspective, this really may be his best bet, unless something comes up later this may be his best bet at an appeal, prevailing on appeal, is if he can find that he convince the appellate court that he had ineffective assistance of counsel in making the plea.
Okay, but it wouldn't be Hippler in the appellate court looking at it, right? Okay, that's what I want to make sure everyone understands, because yes, if we have Hippler looking at this information and the deference that Ron's describing, we're all going down in flames. But and I potentially do believe that that was part of Ann Taylor and her strategy. I do believe that it was part of her strategy after they lost that the motion to introduce the alternate suspects and bring it up, and even to be able to use it in impeachment. I think when they lost that last motion prior to entering the last stages before the trial, I do believe that she was convinced that unless we get out of this courtroom in front of this judge, it doesn't matter what we have at this point.
At least on ineffective assistance of counsel. Potentially, if rulings that the judge made, those are easier to appeal, because if you're appealing a ruling that a judge made, the application of law, then the appellate court can look at it what we call de novo, meaning they look at it fresh. They don't have to give deference to what the judge did. And that's why legal rulings are, at least for me, and particularly in the type of appeals I do, I look for where the judges are making mistakes.
And, I know we'll never know, but when I was watching this interview of Dylan, I just thought, okay, can you imagine her testifying in court at trial? Like, would she just stick with I don't know, I could be totally making this up. This is all a dream, like, her dreams. Because it's very hard for me to consider that a jury would then think that her testimony was credible, or would she all of a sudden tighten up and this is now, really something that she remembers, and this would be incredible impeachment evidence for the defense.
Yeah, if I'm a prosecutor, I might even consider not having her testify at all. If she's not going to be credible, why would I put her on?
Well, and she definitely was on that list, both her and Bethany. But I will tell you from what, and again, this is just my cursory understanding of watching all these amazing content creators, but it was my understanding that with the grand jury trial that was prior to, the case, that she was the most not credible witness, and that she was actually the one witness that was sparking conversation that, hey, maybe this didn't go down, because she is the only person that claimed to be an eyewitness to BK inside the home that night, and her story is full of inconsistencies. She has selective memory, and her behavior was super contradictory. Like, how do we see, again, it goes back to Bethany's, how do we see a man in a mask that you're not aware of, that you don't know, but it's not your roommate's voice, it's not Ethan's, that may have a vacuum, somewhere we have a knife, somewhere we have a sheath. How many hands do we have?
Yeah.
And we still don't run out or call 911?
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. And, speaking of her selective memory, if you will, I think this would be a good time to pause and listen to the following clip.
Open the door, and I do remember looking up the stairs and then looking to the side, and I could kind of see the living room, but not fully. And I just remember seeing nothing. So I slept the door and locked it because I was freaking out. I didn't know if there was a guy there. I don't know if anything was there or not. I don't know. I opened the door again. Again, I don't know if this was real or if my mind was just playing with me. But from what I think I heard was someone was crying in the bathroom, and I think it was Kaylee. But I don't know. I couldn't tell, and I just...
Which bathroom?
The one me and Xana share on the second floor.
So the second time you opened your door?
Yes. And again, I don't know for sure if this was in the bathroom, just what I think happened from what I think I heard and all that. And then from after the crying, I think I heard someone, this guy's voice I had never heard in my life, just saying no, it's okay, I'm gonna help you. But it wasn't in this nice way, it was a weird, creepy way from what I think I remembered. And I'm pretty, again, I don't know anything for sure, I think I called out for Kaylee and Xana because it was the second floor, and I was just like, Kaylee, Xana. And so if someone was there, they would have heard me, and I don't know.
So when you heard his voice, where would he have been when you heard it?
I think the bathroom. I don't know for sure. It could have been. It just seemed too distant from the living room, so I just in my mind, like I think in my mind just suggested, okay, bathroom. That's what I think I hear. Like I think it's bathroom.
And what was it again? He said, "I'm sorry."
He said, "No." He said, "It's okay. I'm gonna help you." I think that's what I said. Again, everything's kind of fuzzy still. I don't fully remember.
Was it directed at you?
No. I think what he was saying that to was whoever was crying in the bathroom. And I from what I think I remember, it was a male voice.
And what did you think? What were you thinking at this time?
I mean, I don't even know what I was thinking. I was just like, what in the world is going on? Like, who is that? Like, are they talking to the girl crying? Like, I don't.
And you thought the girl might be Kaylee.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I think I thought.
But you're only
from those 3 times, because I think I opened the door 3 times and then shut it 3 times. So I don't know when those calls are between. I thought maybe I called back the first or second time, but again, I don't know. It could have been before I even opened the door. I just don't know.
Were you processing any danger?
No, it was just like, I mean, obviously I was scared because I was like, why is there someone in the house? But like when I thought about it, I was just like, I mean, we have parties here a lot. People come in and out all the time. It's normal for people to come in like with other people. Like that's not weird. But I mean, I just didn't understand like what was going on. Like it didn't make sense to me at all. Like I never would have thought, oh, like intruder, murderer. Like that never crossed my mind once. That's what I don't understand.
So I want to tell you, from the first time I heard the story, the perspective I had, not your story, but hearing it from the detective sergeant, I thought, this is why it's important, that the offender was talking to you.
No.
That you're going to be okay.
No.
It was directed at the person crying in the bathroom.
Sorry if that got mixed up, but like.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
This is why it's important. Who do you think that person was talking to?
I think it was Kaylee, and I think the guy was talking to Kaylee in what I think was the bathroom.
That's important. But do you see my perspective?
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Then that means he knows you and he wants to protect you. And that would be important for his investigation.
That makes more sense. So obviously I left the door that second time. I don't know who I called before, after, whatever.
It's on your phone though?
Yeah, it's on my phone. And
so did you ever call anyone outside the house?
No, it didn't even cross my mind. I was just calling my roommates, that's like my closest friends who I trust. I called.
Okay, so like what I got from this was absolutely shocking to me. And I don't know if you guys will agree, but Dylan specifically stated, I started opening and closing and locking my door, and I wanted to scream. I'm like, how do you know? Because presumably you were in this dream state.
Oh, that's amazing, Sam.
Yeah, and then at some point you run downstairs to Bethany's room, and she continues to say, but we didn't think it was, we didn't think it was anything. It wasn't that big of a deal, etc. And then I fall asleep, and now we have another 8 hours until obviously we're calling 911. It's like, why are you so confident on that one? Now, I'm sure if we asked you again, you'd probably say, well, I don't remember and yada, yada, but she was pretty clear.
So Ron, what would you attack in that statement right there? Because I have a million questions. Oh, man, you could go down a rabbit hole with the line of questioning right there.
Yeah, it's and it's surprising that there's not a lot of follow-up on that.
No, and then she waited how long before they called 911? After she saw the masked man with the vacuum? Or was it when Bethany heard the fireworks? Or was it when we heard Kaylee crying or screaming or saying someone was there?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me that Dylan was the least credible of the witnesses. And frankly, I would be kind of surprised if the prosecutor ended up putting her on the stand in the first place, which then would leave a big hole in the evidence and something where the defense could attack.
Well, yeah, because she was the main witness. Yeah. She was like what the prosecution was relying on. Besides her, I mean, a lot of it is just cell phone pings and touch DNA.
And this all goes back to then, why did he plead guilty? Because the case was just not based on a lot of credible evidence, and there's so many holes. And that then, from an appellate perspective, comes back to, may he potentially pursue an ineffective assistance of counsel in advising him to make that plea at some point. Now, he may not. There may be forces at work here that will cause him to be quite satisfied to stay where he is, rather than try to turn this around. But boy, this
What
is
do you
not
think
one that you look at and
potentially-
say, "Oh, of course he's going to plea," or "I understand the plea." I don't understand the plea.
So Sam and I have taken a lot of time going over these episodes of talking about how it's not that hard to wrap our head around sometimes when people take a plea, because the alternative is that much worse, especially when you're facing a firing squad.
Yeah, I just think that there's so many different reasons why someone might take a plea deal. Some of them might not be nefarious. Some of it might just be pressure from understanding the public's thought on you. And you're just like, you have to be in a high pressure situation. And then there's those other concerns, right? Like, is there some drug connection to the case? Is someone, while he's incarcerated, potentially threatening him? Or does he feel threatened, even if they weren't direct threats? Is someone in his family being threatened? Is he just so overwhelmed with the idea of a firing squad and so out of hope from the decisions that the judge has been making in the case that he thinks that there's no way this doesn't end in a firing squad? Has his attorney made him feel that you really are probably headed for a firing squad if you don't come to this plea? And I'm not saying that the attorney said that. And again, like Ron said, I'm not pointing to something specific that his attorney did, but I could imagine a scenario where you're counseling your client that all of the stuff and the way we want to run the case, everything's going bad. Like, there's been a trial in the media, if you will, already, and everyone's decided that you're guilty. And so, you really have to consider this. And this is the first time we have a chance at a deal.
We have the trial by media. We have the leaks in direct violation of the non-dissemination order. We have the Dateline videos, then the Amazon Prime. I'm sure there might have even been more. And then they lose pretty much every motion with respect to the alternate suspects theories. They lose everything with respect to that. Hippler basically weighs it and says, no, we're not going to entertain it. I don't think there's enough there. And by the way, you're not even going to introduce this on impeachment unless I know about it first. And then I think it was weeks before the trial was supposed to start, they get the witness list. His sister ends up on both sides, the prosecution and the defense witness list, which is wild. She's going to be a hostile witness for one of them. And, I think it is quite possible that there is some sort of rug correlation with this whole thing, that there might have been some threats going on. Of course, we don't know that for a fact. There's only a couple people that probably know that, but I do think it's something I can wrap my head around.
No, this is just so much, so many questions. I've never seen a case with just so many questions in a plea deal like this.
Isn't it wild?
And I think that's why there's so much attention to this case.
Yeah. And I think I said this before, my fear right now is that not necessarily that Brian wasn't involved. I have little doubt that there's something there. They wouldn't have just picked somebody out of the blue, but there are people, and I don't know how this sort of thing can be accomplished with, just one person. There are people out there who have done this, who are going off free. They're still out there.
Yeah. So there's talk speculation. Obviously, everything we do on the show is our opinion, speculations. We are taking information that's available and we are working through theories. In no way is this legal advice or completely taken as everything we say is fact. But there are some theories that potential, was Brian potentially like, did he work for a government entity? Was there, or anyone for that matter, were any of these witnesses put there with intention, and we just don't know, right? Like he applied to be an intern for the Washington State Police Department. The two universities were very close together. It wasn't like they were a 2-hour drive, which potentially could be the reason his cell phone pinged 22 times around that area. But I keep throwing back the idea is like, was he undercover? Did he work for Moscow PD? Is there something that we just don't know? And did they throw him to the lion's den?
I don't know if we have evidence to support that, but I also don't know that we have evidence to exclude it. So just because it's not right there doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't more to it. And I think that a lot of people are drawing connections specifically because nothing else makes sense, because the evidence that points to him really doesn't totally point to him. So there's got to be something else to it. Like Ron said, you don't just like pick someone out of the blue as a fall guy.
Okay, but my understanding with the touch DNA, I think one of the big issues that Ron, that's one thing I want you to really go into with respect to in another episode of what we can talk about, of like the knife sheath wasn't found for it's my understanding for hours from the time that the initial officers went through the King Road after the 911 call. It was like, I think 3 to 4 hours. It wasn't found. Now that could be because nobody is allowed to touch the crime scene without a specific checklist or protocol, although we do know that things were likely changed and modified based on the pictures that they're giving us. But it's like, that's another thing. I'm like, okay, if you take that knife sheath out, what do you have?
And when you're taking it out, you got to take out the lack of memory of the other witness.
Yeah, but then we have audio from all these different ring cams that are hearing things that make it very likely that these acts took place outside of the residence. So, yeah.
Yeah, and DNA evidence is one of the things that in Idaho you can and that potentially may be available to him, not necessarily as an appeal, but as a post-conviction remedy. If he can show that further DNA evidence rules him out, or makes it more probable than not that he did not, was not there or did not participate in the crime, then potentially that's a ground that he could have the conviction, even the plea, thrown out.
Which again, we're listening to Ron say that it might not be over, which I think is a really important question, because what do you do, post-conviction? There's all these people that are still raising their arm and saying, hey, like there's something going on here that doesn't make sense. But I want to talk about it's 2 clips in a row that I think should be placed one after another. And I want to ask you guys about it.
Which did, like, if it's all is real and it's not like imagination dream, like if it is real, let's just like say that it is for somehow. He had to have heard me call for Kaylee in Santa when I heard Kaylee crying in the bathroom, from what I think I heard.
How many feet away is he from you?
I would say about 3 feet from what I remembered. Again, that could be off because I was obviously probably still a little bit drunk. I just woke up. I don't remember fully. But I remember, like, what I think I remember was like this item, and it was like, what I explained was like, it looked like this like cylinder little thing that was skinny like this, like about this long, and then it went like a triangle at the end. And I remember one of the cops saying like a bow or something. I can't remember, something about that. And it was like the bow and arrow kind of stuff.
Where was it at when he was holding it? Where was?
I don't know. It was. I think it was lower, or it could have been higher. But like.
But it's in his hand.
Yeah, but when I remembered it, it was like when I saw him, I thought firefighter. Like, because what said firecracker, so I was like, okay, firefighter. Like maybe he's like holding it to take out the fire. But when I thought about this, fire didn't even like occur to me like it's a bad thing. Like I never thought, oh, fire, we have to get out. That didn't occur to me at all. I just thought firefighter, like he's gonna help us. And it wasn't like, oh, there's an intruder, like this is bad. Like it didn't ever occur to me, and I don't know why. And I know he looked at me because I could see his eyebrows. I think I just saw one eyebrow. I don't know why or how, but I just remember him like. What I think I saw was he was walking out, and he saw me, but just kept walking. Like he didn't stop. He didn't like say anything to me, and I just remember saying no, and I slammed the door and locked it. And that was like all I remember. And I don't know if he actually went out the back door. That's what I think happened.
So is that the sliding door?
That's that sliding door. I don't know for sure. That's just what I think I saw in my mind. I'll text. I heard Kaylee crying.
And you believed you heard a male voice saying?
I believed I heard a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm gonna help you."
And it wasn't directed at you?
I know it was not directed at me because I was more distant. I could tell it was not towards me at all.
So this is a question I have to ask.
Yeah.
If he saw you, why do you believe you were spared?
I don't know. I've been asking that like nonstop. It kind of freaks me out because I'm just like, I don't really understand why I was spared. Like, I'm a girl. I am 5'10". I'm not that insanely strong. A guy is a lot stronger than I am. If he wanted to hurt me, he would have. That's what I don't understand. And I've just been like wondering, like, did he know me? Did he not know me? Like, was it because he did know me and didn't want, like, and felt bad, or was it because he didn't know me and knew I wouldn't recognize him? Like, what was it? That's why. It's just like, that's why I want to. It's like, if we do find this guy, that's like one of the first things I want to know. Is like, why did you not? You didn't open. He never ever tried to open my door. That's what I know. I know nothing. Like, no one tried to open my door. Like, he could have stabbed the, like, from what we know now was a knife. He could have stabbed the knife through my door, tried to open my door, anything. You probably could have kicked down that door if you wanted to, but he never did.
So I do know this, and so does the detective sergeant. He passed by occupied rooms that posed a risk that he would be apprehended if you hurt him. So the question is, he passed by occupied rooms to go to other occupied rooms.
Yeah.
He had to go by your room to get to the other two rooms.
Unless he got, I mean, I remember Katie was kind of worried about someone climbing that balcony up there. I don't know if someone could climb it, but I feel like if someone really, really wanted to, they could. I mean, I don't know how.
Was there snow there, though? There was snow, correct?
I think so. I don't remember if it was snowing that night.
I think they would have found.
Of course, is such a tough answer, and I understand that, you know, there's a lot there, and that's a hard thing to answer. But part of Dylan's answer, as you guys have heard, is that she doesn't know. Maybe, you know, she would like to know if they figure out who it is, and essentially, you know, maybe they knew her, or, you know, maybe they, you know, just continued to go on.
And didn't she also, I have to go back and verify this exact wording, but didn't she also say that after he walked past her, he walked outside and left, that she saw him? So how would clearly, if it was him, the unalivings would have already been done before they crossed paths.
Yeah, meaning that they supposedly slept for hours and hours and hours after the crimes had already happened.
Which, and that's my problem with a lot of the interview, is I understand she's claiming all these memory issues, but then she's quite clear when she's talking about certain things. And it's just hard to imagine that you can be so clear about these certain things and then everything else was all a dream. Potentially, maybe, pretty much, like Kristen said.
That and pretty much, can I tell you what happened at 4 a.m.? And that just seems like such an interjected storyline. I can't with that. That's like, I need you to say this now before you say this, this, and this. And unfortunately, I think there is a lot of that going on this investigation. But Sam, I think you actually hit the bullseye 1,000 times. And what I would pay for you to do a cross-examination against.
I would pay to do it. Okay.
You know, if I was a millionaire, I would throw $1 million at you, Sam, to see you and Ron do a cross-examination of DM, because that should be on Dateline. That's what should be on Dateline. But I think with the crying, the thuds, the voices, the masked figure, the opening the door, hearing it's okay, I'm here to help you, seeing a man walk by, seeing him go through the kitchen. But then we have selective memory sometimes. And if we have a medical professional that has experience or is an expert with respect to trauma cases like this and how it affects the memory, we would love to have you on. But like, Ron, what I come on, keep telling us your analysis, and like, this interview is just wild. That's all I got to say. It's wild.
Yeah, and the way she talks, she would just they'd ask a question and she'd tell a story, and they'd ask a
Not
question and
responsive.
she'd tell a story. If I was, for instance, if I was in a deposition with a client who was doing this, I would be kicking her under the table to shut up. It's just
It's a good old elbow rub, a good little elbow jab.
Well,
oh
but
yeah,
you wouldn't
no.
need to do that if you just told her that if she absolutely cannot 100% verify it with significant evidence, that she should say she doesn't remember.
Yeah. But seriously, she was testifying like for instance, one of my family law clients. Let's say I was in a domestic violence trial, and I put her up as the victim or somebody who's claiming domestic violence happened. And like so many people tend to do, she feels when she's up on the stand, it's her time to tell her story, to advocate for herself. And she goes, and while her motive may not be, may be pretty straightforward and innocent, it's still not the way that I would necessarily want her to testify. This Dylan is a independent witness, supposedly. She's someone who was a friend of the victims and was there. She is not necessarily someone who's in a position that you would think to be advocating for herself, for a story, to be pushing a story, yet she's testifying like someone who's doing that.
And I think she's doing that because she's getting potential influence from maybe law enforcement or what, because she truly is the only alleged eyewitness, right? She is truly the only one that is claiming she came face-to-face contact with BK. Now, but like with that, she opened the door, I think it was 3 times before she made eye contact. Why would she keep opening the door if she hadn't heard anything? She didn't believe anything was wrong, or she was sleeping. Why would she have opened the door 3 times?
Nothing adds up to me and nothing makes sense. And I don't know why. I just know that it doesn't make any sense. And I know we brought this up a little bit in the interview with Bethany, but I mean, the fact that Dylan can remember the man. She can remember what he was holding, but not where he was holding it or how he was holding the object. She can remember seeing Xana on the floor, but she can't remember if the lights are on. She can remember partially running to Bethany's room, but she can't remember what they talked about. She thinks that she was at least scared enough to not sleep in her own room, and at least scared enough to lock and unlock a door that at the beginning she didn't know if she had locked, but she thought everything was okay, right? She when she's also in there talking to the police officer, she's sitting there saying, well, we didn't think anything was wrong. Like we didn't really think anything was wrong. Well, what do you mean you didn't think anything was wrong? You saw a man, you heard crying, you heard barking, you were messaging your roommate. And most of the time that she was saying the things I know happened, I know they happened because of text messages that she could read or review. But then my question to that is, if you can only, if your memory includes, this was the huge question I want to ask her, for sure that you sent those messages and those messages were received. And knowing that, you say, okay, I remember that too. I want to know, do you independently remember sending that message, or do you only remember the message because you've now read it afterwards? Because if your memory matches that, then isn't it possible that the rest of your memory is okay for the night? Like, who's told you your memory doesn't work? Who's told you that? You just decided that? Did a therapist tell you that? Who told you that?
And it only worked for those, it only didn't work for those couple of hours because clearly it remembered in the days to come. But no, I man, like I said, I'd love to pay you two to go cross-examine her. Maybe I'll start
Well,
a
and then-
GoFundMe.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can play another clip where, you know, she's saying, I can't remember what his face looked like. I can't remember if anything really happened or if anything's real or not. So to Kristen's point, star witness for sure can't remember.
She don't remember.
She actually might have hallucinated a man there.
But they were holding a vacuum. And they must have had a knife and they must have had a sheath. And
the vacuum might have been up, the vacuum might have been down. Dylan might have been sleeping, and I didn't want to wake her up.
And you know what's interesting?
But we also just put a new random number in our phone within an hour. We were adding a contact to our phone at approximately 3:30 in the morning. Don't quote me on the exact minutes. But we were asleep and we were editing social media pics, which is evidence.
If you want a jury to not believe anything that you know she may testify or that Bethany may testify to during that time period, then I think she's done a perfect job of doing that. And so when you do that, then you're left with what's the other evidence? Well, you've got the sheath tying Brian to it. So could Brian, you know, we don't know what happened.
Which also had another unknown male's DNA on it that we still don't know who that was. Mind you, it had 2 male DNAs on it.
Yeah, and that's another big issue. But it's almost like her testimony could have been designed to black out that entire time and leave just what other evidence they have from other sources, meaning the inferences regarding Brian driving back and forth potentially, and his DNA on the knife sheath. I don't think the jury was going to be told that there was other DNA on that. I think that's something that
yeah, and I mean, I just want to develop those questions that someone would ask her, right? Like, so if she's sitting there saying that she has these memory issues, like, I would like to ask her, okay, well, what if I told you it was a woman that was walking by? What if I told you she was wearing a dress and she was holding nothing? Is that possible? I'd like to know her answer. I'd like to know if her answer was, no, that's definitely not possible. Because I think she knows more than she's saying she knows.
I agree 1000%.
I think she either knows that what she's saying isn't true, or she's not saying the other facts that she also knows.
Okay, yeah. Ron. So it's got to be hard looking at this 3 years later, going back and going, man, I don't even know if that makes sense. You know, like the more and more information we have, the less and less it even makes more sense. Like it's crazy. It just gets more chaotic and cloudy with each piece of evidence and the more clear of the vision that we have. And okay, now let's get to Xana. Okay, so we see she claims that she sees Xana on the floor, right? That they even up and through the 911 call, her friend is likely intoxicated and passed out. She clearly could identify her from the floor because she knew it was Xana and it was in Xana's room. Okay. Mm-hmm. She assumed she was drunk and sleeping. She testified or said in the investigation that she heard her crying moments earlier. But why are we not talking about the fact that either, hey, I looked up on my phone, find my friends, I can see Life 360. I could see that her phone was in the house and I could see her on the floor, but I didn't go check on her.
Yeah. I mean, even if she did think she was drunk on the floor, most people would say, oh, she passed out on the floor drunk. Let me go help her get her into bed or something like that.
And they were on the same floor.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't, let's like suspend that for a minute. Even if you didn't, at 8 a.m., when you see her again, don't you think you'd check then? What about at 8:30?
Or 10?
What about at 9? What about going upstairs because you think she's unconscious? Okay, let's suspend that again. Let's believe that you thought she was unconscious. Well, and you couldn't wake her up. Well, don't you think you should go get Kaylee or Maddie to help?
And their phones are also being registered to the house that's showing up. So
Because they hung out a lot, right? Like they weren't stranger
no, they were
roommates.
very, very close. They were described as only really truly hanging out with each other. I think Ethan and Xana might have ventured off to, some other friend groups, but it's a very clear media storyline that they hung out with each other. And then I guess one of my biggest questions to follow up that is, was this something Xana did often? Was it common for her to get so drunk that she would pass out, in a t-shirt and, maybe minimal bottom half garments? Was that normal that you just assumed that that's what was going on? And can we really talk about if I mean, I believe the exact number of stab wounds was somewhere in the neighborhood of more than 40, give or take. I think that was the range it was in. Don't quote me on the exact number, but you don't think the red stuff would have been a red flag? Ron, elaborate on that.
Oh, no. I mean, I think you're really getting into that inherently improbable arena.
Right? Like the more you say it out loud, don't you go, wait, okay, we're onto something. We are really onto something.
Yeah. It's almost like the testimony is designed to both give information to make it credible, to try to keep her from being implicated, but also give plausible deniability in for that range of time, especially when she's saying, I don't know if I was dreaming it or not. Then if there's something she says during her description of those events that you don't like, well, it's easy. Well, that's probably not true because she was dreaming or not credible on that. But she's credible on this other stuff that we want to use.
Yeah, and I also want to know when her memory came back. Was it that by that night? Did she remember the 911 call?
Yeah.
Does she remember any of that? When did it come back?
Yeah, those are great questions, Ron. Those are great questions, Sam. And I don't
Ron's
even
been made for Halloween before, and he was a good.
Yeah. Ron and another attorney decided they were going to dress up as the custody queens, and man, did they!
You should put that picture up.
Here is a picture for reference of Jeremy Rourke, one of our attorneys, and Ron dressing up as Sam and Kristen, the custody queens. And man, did they get it from the shoes to the hair? That was a couple of years ago, but that was one of my favorite. All right, so Ron, you don't have to answer these questions now because sure. I'm just giving you homework. Sam and I we bombarded Ron about a month ago, and it's not just that Ron's a very good attorney and he's got 30 years of litigation, but he truly has one of the most brilliant brains that we've had the opportunity to work with. But we very objectively wanted Ron to analyze the evidence on his own and look at it from that appellate perspective and, say, hey, Chris and Sam, you're getting it completely wrong here. Or, hey, no, you're aligned. But Ron, we're giving Ron homework by the week. So it's not, this is not a case that you can completely catch up on in over a couple weeks or even a month. So we are continuing to do that. And we're going to keep diving down that rabbit hole with Ron. But Ron, what if, because Sam and I have talked about this, what if she had a Fitbit or a Apple Watch or one of those rings that tracks your sleep, right? Sam, are those like Aurora rings or
Aura rings?
Aura rings. There you go.
And they're great.
I was like, you have one, and I pretty much have had every fitness Garmin Fitbit that you can imagine. But what if she had one of those and it wasn't ever brought to evidence, or she took it off when she went to bed and it, like Maddie's coat, kind of got tossed in a bag and we never checked it for information or digital evidence or DNA? What if there was something, an old phone that was tied to an iCloud that could show that there were heart rate spikes or her movement, or that there was no way by her heart rate, there is no way she was sleeping at any point from 2 a.m. to 11 or 12 a.m. 12 p.m. the next day? What if that evidence came out?
Well, I'll give you a little preview if we're going to discuss it more further.
Give us a 5-minute preview, a little teaser, and then
we're in habeas corpus land. where potentially exculpatory evidence was withheld from the defense. That's where you really get into federal habeas corpus. And that's something that could potentially be brought up at any time.
And newsflash, there is evidence that Ann Taylor has claimed that she still has yet to receive that was within the discovery process.
But again, you're the question, that's something that Brian would need to bring. And is he going to do it?
Does it have any effect that with the potential motion for ineffective assistance of counsel that she is still his attorney? Does that mean anything one way or the other? Because she still represented him on the last restitution financial hearing that was within the last week or two.
No, I don't think it does. And I think ineffective assistance of counsel is such a ubiquitous thing in criminal law that it's really, in fact, if he asked her to file an appeal based on ineffective assistance of counsel, she would be required to do it.
Ooh, I did not know that. I did not know that she would be the one filing the appeal. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's all we have time for today. But wow, that was great, Ron. And every time Sam and I talk to you, we always learn some new stuff. And I know we make you feel slightly uncomfortable, but it's all out of love, buddy. It's all out of love. So if you have any questions that you would like Ron to answer about anything we talked about today, Bethany's hearing, I think there's so much we haven't even dug into, but please make sure you leave a comment. We are active in the chat, all three of us, and you can also send us a message as well. And if you are looking for more information about Ron, you can go on to our Custody Queens website and you can check out his bio and look at him from there. But thank you for joining us. We are so grateful to be part of this YouTube community.
Until next time.
All right. Thanks for having me.